coffee, tea, hot water. Yeah, cool. Anyone online? Not at the moment.
If you need anything, please.
Tsewang, canteen tea.
Chu.
Coffee.
Coca Luzan Joyo Mara.
Let's have a jogi.
Look at it.
Yinayang kung 진짜 친구 요
Vale.
private lessons yure.
Gergi
Gergi.
공수도 소라 공수도 소라 롭좀 저기. Gergi 진짜 private lesson is gergi 진짜. Like gertun is like one's own benefit. Rangtun,
Oh.
gertun,
Gertun.
and so ger is like private or personal.
Okay. Gertun.
So Jutetsara. It's like a time that Mitsoma Yosan to take. Did you take Traba Soma Yosan?
nga di sini lo cha thong song de de thong ko ti go cha chimpo la thong so di anki chang ma chi di
Tombo nga so phagi cheri jora. Ari to chijamo mombo cheri gina legre. Aso cheri jonde. Ine kozo nga so ri jute tora. Angi de steg mare. Aso kashi yabu marana. So yabu yo mare zena so ache. Aso yo sal so ma station la. Kozo hasan re. Te yabu mundo la. Nano mo sa sa. Aso ngama chonson kansera. Geyo ma.
Kansera.
Tanda chuji yabu temo. Chulinga yabu zena.
nga so di chigo some tang kresna di sangma dinje china krangse dinje china di gender tang chatok mambo kekire di skange chegire dinje de komso namgyun di anki di sosu kimila di dekire di mi sangma ado
aso soma kores
Well, that's a good question. We were supposed to start on 72, but Geshe has been going back and reviewing, so I'm not exactly sure where he's going to actually start. But we were there. Potentially, we'll start on. Are you in the English? Yeah, the 4 powers on page 72. But he may back up and do some reviews, what we did last time. So we'll see.
Butsa. Tanda lemendo.
Mi kashi lo so. Mini. Regular mini. Our regulars to Runa. Not right here.
Ning gutsura. Ane takaso kozola lig ka shera. Ani. Tandate.
So last time we're going to start. Last time we did a little bit of. We talked a little bit about karma.
Lig ka momba shera ne kar shera jana tanda. Also ale nanchingi me tiko shera. Tanda su tar tanga so le dala karare jana sona chile moyo le jane le dala le magewa somz shera.
Sonam gile.
Ane magewile gewile moyowile meyowile oh tindis ji
So the last time also we talked a lot about not not knowing the time when you're going to die or the cause of your death, right? So that was also the thing that we talked about last time. And so when we talk about karma can be divided into 3. You have virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, and what is translated is like immovable karma, miyowele. What's that? Yeah, all the English names are so weird, it doesn't make sense, but that's what we've got, yeah.
아니 단당아서 레달라요 돈시 뇽저지 레자 제니 뇽저지 레제네 레달라 페나 신들라 돈시 뇽저지 레제나 단달레 마게아지 사나 네 신들 나메 신들 메바도 아니 요 제니 뇽저지 레제나 신들레 마게 신들 마게 사나 레티야 치마치마라 파티야.
So we also can talk about karma in divisions of essentially when you experience the karma. So you have karma that is experienced in the same life, and you have karma that is experienced in sort of in a future life, in one of your future lives.
Penangaso 돈신용저지 레제나 카르레제나 penangaso tanda 미지세나 아니 친들라 창콘란로 네 드부뇽고도아 어디서 돈신용저지 레 친들라 미지세 ngandaba jiga meji sena ne ko le de sa ye kia chama nyo le mombo yore te na sindalan thonshin yonje ki le kar sa gre jana sindal chen khonon ro ato dubu nyo a tendeji.
Yeah, so for one example, come on in, Jennifer. One example of this idea of the karma that whose effects you experience in this life, for example, is if you kill someone, then you're going to have a lot of problems. Like you might be sent to prison, and there's just going to be a lot of sort of bad results from that kind of an action, even in this life.
ane tanda yo gewesingi kashi ka karla gre jana ngaso le de yashate thonshin yonje ki le de sana yashores pena ngandaba jena sindal magya mombo sitola lu juchu konla magya le mombo sana ne seme zena lu juchu ji ngaju tuju desona de le tanda sa to sindal nyongtuna yabu yores karrezena kia chimala ne dinga nyoa yore to ne sindal digbada so ta sha tindi yores ne
So many teachers also say that actually this karma that you experience in this life can be really good or is better, because like if you spend say 30 or 40 years developing or accumulating bad karma, and then you're able to actually exhaust or experience that karma in this lifetime, and then you don't have to experience it in future lifetimes.
Yenayo ta mombo jikati donle chetu yo mares karezena ngaso sindala chepu demo chomba dama to sindala chepu to debu sindala chepu to debu chomba da saulu mato sindala ngal debu nyona sindala ngal kanga tena sane tindi saulu ton to yo mares ngone ina sindala debu choma nyona kia chama la denga nyoa yo rezene.
This, of course, is very hard, and many people aren't able to do this. It's most people, we want happiness in this life, and we don't want to avoid suffering. So or we don't want suffering. It's really difficult to have this mind that says, oh, great, I prefer to suffer in this lifetime because I know that in future lifetimes I'll be happier. Right? That's not an easy mind to really cultivate.
Ngone sindala dupunyo kia ngama le mombo sa le du cha mombo sa yora te to sindala sabe le dupu mombo te aso sindala melindengula nyonto na kararezena yabu yores susolo rongo yota le dupu nyonsona ne le dupu to chotha to ne gyosha cha to gyosha jena dupa sha to ne kangamayo salu mombo to malila rongo mombo chores salu to ane chuda na ane changsa to ane pichalo at kuka mombo yores lin nyona ane lin sindala shana yabu shato ato yenayo ta kia chama nyowa to tanru kia lesona ne ko dinga kase nyona nyoa dearama to dinga de mebazwa ko kozol tashi yo mares.
So another way we can say that it's very beneficial for us to experience to sort of have to think about karma in this life is that we have the potential, say if we accumulate a lot of karma as human beings right now, we have a lot of ways to purify that karma. We can do prostrations, we can do, purify through studying. So there's lots of different ways that we can purify this karma that we've accumulated right now because we're born as people. But if we're born in the future as an animal or a hell being right now, they don't have any way to actually purify their negative karma.
Pena jeze singin rabo to tang rabo tindi kewa chi lesona ane kol tsingema ni lima ga sa dubu dribu mombo yo amase sindala yo yonjo kopa yonjo mombo shawa to la chi mombo segra duba mo ga chomba le ne pa ngeson ro amato ya tabi kuko meba tabu tindi chires maliram bachila ne shawa ja tindi kuko mombo yo res.
So if we think about, for example, like lions and tigers, the lions and tigers, accrued those beings accrued the karma to be born as those animals, right? But then in that lifetime, they are really stuck having to sort of constantly be killing other animals, so they're continually accruing more karma. So it's really difficult for them. But we have this really what we call this precious human rebirth. We have this ability to purify karma.
ane ta ngasu khajel ngasu peban de jena mero gemba jora. Mero gemba jena lu chimbo de so.
Come on in. It's okay. Thank you. Please come in. Thank you, Paula. Welcome. Would you like water or tea or coffee? There's hot water back there. We are talking about karma at the moment and why it's good to experience the karma in this life, because we are born as humans and we can have the ability to actually purify that karma.
ane ta ngasu peban de jena mero gemba jora lu chimbo ngasu phaman ro tigin. Kozo tanda tsindal na chamombo na kanga ka setena kozo karasalo to res tachya yo mar kya ngami leres kya ngama ke le dupu sane tsindal ngal megreten tindi salu to ke pemo res tik ton kar chabo yo res na susul sal kanga chwa to ne tindi ke chabo shabo yo res tanga na chya yo mar na ke jot sa sa le kya ngama to mombo sa sa ne tanda na ke chya yo mar res kozo tindi salu to ke mombo tindi gengo to so nagando ngal kanga chumbo zen tindi tisi nyonyores.
So we can say like the older Tibetans, right? The Tibetans, as they get older, of course, like all of us, when Tibetans get older, they have lots of sickness, lots of health problems, like lots of difficulties, right? Like all people as we age, we have these difficulties. And so one of the things from the Tibetan culture is that they have, as they get older and they're experiencing these difficulties, they really understand or they really believe this idea that, oh, well, all of these difficulties come from karma that I've experienced in previous lives. Like it's my own fault, essentially. I accrued this karma, so now I'm experiencing this difficulty. And so what is the benefit of that? Is that if you believe that or if you understand that, right, then you have less trouble. Your mind is able to understand. Like your mind doesn't get as upset about it. So even though you get, as you get older and you get sick and you have these problems, because these older Tibetans have this belief or understanding of karma and that they have accrued the causes for these sicknesses and illnesses and problems, so that's the result, then they don't suffer as much from them because they take responsibility for them.
Tindi chato saulu tindi tona kipa karayo rezana susul kanga chonga to tindi pena tanga so legendary kamashe na pena michi ngala tsitsabu chi launa ne susu kontro zagara tila tsitsabu launa ti maza chet karezana kola khayo mares ta nga kola mandriga chipachi tende che yore mato kongala nanjanga bateg mares 수승원의 난치지요라 수승원의 만두바지요라 때네 디사울도 동타나 아니 컨트로자와도 아니 다트서 시초렌도 컨트로자 강가 초에 페나 난다비 촐라 츠바자라 나 촐 츠바자 띵에 사울도네 나 콜 츠바자 게데카레 나 촐 치 만두바지 제라마도 총아 츠바자 마라 때네 인텔리전스 사울도나 아니 컨트롤 츠바자 시초한테 들마도 다 파 켤 츠바지자네 예샤샤 수술은 난치 촌에 살로마도 난치 소마마 젬발이 요래 되되나 요때 강가 침보지레서
So as we said, right, the benefit of this is really that it just creates less problems. It creates less mental difficulties. So for example, even if we want to, like, say we don't even talk about karma, we just sort of talk about psychology, like how we work in this life, right? So say I get angry, right? Say somebody does something to me that I perceive as hurting me and I get angry, right? If I blame them, I'm just creating more problems for myself. But if I think instead, oh, it's not really that person's fault, I'm going to take the fault, I think it's my fault, I did something that caused them to get angry, I'm going to just practice patience. You know, and then in that situation, right, if you can do this, if you can practice this kind of patience and not always be blaming other people, then your mind has less, difficulty, less problems, you're calmer. If you go around all the time blaming everyone else every time you're upset, you're just creating more problems for yourself and for everyone else.
네, 지금 가서 컨트롤에 니바 첨부 셔버지 그래서 얘나 컨트롤이 가르드그라는 콘제 콘제도 네가 요래서.
So anger, of course, is very dangerous, but it's very dangerous. It's very problematic. But what's actually worse than that is what we could translate as it's kind of like resentment, or it's like really sort of nurturing anger. It's like anger that you really hold on to, like this desire to hurt someone.
네, 가르즈는 컨트롤도 가서 로어드 지그래서. 얘나 로어드 조부션도 그래서. 매바 샤티스타디부. 얘나 디지털 콘제티 제소나 아니 되게 제렘보 마쳐봐줘하더니 조펜세 만템봐줘하더. 디 소마도 콘제기 제기 그래서.
So the difference here is anger is something that comes and goes quite quickly, right? It's not good, but it will just go away. What we'll translate as resentment is the problem with this is that it sticks around, right? Like if you really harbor this kind of resentment about someone, it lasts for a very long time, and so it creates problems for you constantly. So this is very dangerous.
네, 콘제도 솔직히래서는 계산 못치셔 수수그 간이 벤체 타니셔 수수도 타니셔 수수라 치셔 수수라 조부자나면 수수 닝컬다 못치야 콘제도 고소르게 되어요래서.
So, and who do we develop this resentment? This sort of sustained dislike of people. It's mostly it's our friends and family and the people that are near us.
아니 따도 콘제살 가르쳐고래잖아. 수수고 살로 자자도. 살로 때서 자침보통하도. 아니 수수고 난초 문제자. the 콘제마. 다 컨트롤이 다 콘제 배낭한다버지 졸로 콘제 제대요라. 졸로 가부메이데 아니 간다버지 졸로 gonda 난 나르소. 네. 딘디체네 카소네 파셰. 딘디시마토아이나. 아니 몬테네 결혼한 토테 마디디 나 결혼 토테 마디디 지기치로 마가 도반다 잔루데나 티 콘제트 나요 제투고 말했어. 근데서 티 콘제트 제마도나 아니 조보도서 소마토 jon타레 레렌루 자레스.
So like anger, like what is this, or how should we react? What should we do when this kind of resentment arises? Well, the best thing to do is just like anger is to really just think, okay, I'm sorry, really, this was my fault, really take the fault onto yourself, practice patience, let it go. So just like anger, trying to use that sort of same skillful means. Now, if you're not able to do that, if that's too much, then the best thing is just to get away, to put some distance from the person or thing that is creating this resentment.
아니 당가서 젬발라 콘제체카서 gonda ngan duma suza jemoto agency su kararazen su ngajala tene chongyorese 당가서 밀라 gonda to ngan duma su ngan nantriso ti tipa mil logon kabunda lamu timoto kararazen su ngajashikchi onke tilatuyo mares
So when we talk about why, like when someone does something wrong to you or you have this resentment, it's very difficult to actually apologize and sort of say, oh, it's my fault, right? Like that's not easy to do. And so why is this so hard for us to do? It's because of our pride.
And ngajala tene kanti chorezene susu de shibaji 첨보지 때 내가 kongal nanjo yabu matena nga karchene kol nanjo yabu te gemares ane nga kongal gonda majena nga karchene kol gonda je goresene tindi salo mombu jinkor ane ko hamasana nga cha hasana su yesasa
ko hasana
kongal che yabu macha chol ham honson masona nga pa yabu che go kariyor sa yabu machena pa yabu che go bi jinse yo maresen susu nga je su ta tumbo chi khane tindi chena tene tinna yun chante tane yabu cha tu mares.
So, when because of this pride, what happens is you think, oh, this person harmed me. Why should I help them? Why should I? It's really this person's fault. Why should I take the fault onto myself? You have these sort of like, you have a really difficult time because of the pride. You're always sort of questioning, why should I have to do this? They should be the ones to apologize, right? So the pride makes it really difficult for you to actually be able to sort of take the fault onto yourself and to apologize and to practice patience.
Ane pena ngaja timan jata angus kol gonda to ane nga mandris za tindi kas kanila matuna kote ti nanja yabunda ten ane pena ngaja ongi nga mejembala gonda chingandu masu tilatu yomara tindi kanila matuna ane lig nanja ki kas konda uchi thusona longan thusona tombo khata matuna gemunda ge labanda cha anendro ane thitba lesana sanda shukol desanda ja tindiche lig nanja tene tindiche tuna ane jimayo kale pe chambu chang ma kamshi tegara ma yo khane gonda nga rumasu zane kashinga je chimbu tila tu khaburas yenayo khane lama tuna langwana thiti gemunda ge labanda cha ne chile tene ko desanda so tindiche ne yo kale sen chambu cha tindi yongores.
So what you can do, of course, is if there's a situation where you have this kind of anger or resentment towards someone and you're not able, right? You're just not able to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, that was my fault," right? And just sort of let it go. Then what you can do, is if you're not able to actually speak those words, then what you can do, for example, is when you see that person, you can just sort of smile and wave, right? You can go and sit next to the person. You can do these things where you're not necessarily having to sort of apologize and take fault on yourself, but you do things where you sort of slowly get used to just being around the person, right, and sort of relax a little bit. And then if you do that, then it will become easier and easier for you to repair that relationship, to become closer to that person.
Pena susu ngajo chimbo to tan thombo yora. Tawan thombo san ngai nga shibaji ta jora. Tindi katse shikchia susu julayona susu gabu chenke to nyinko denke to tobu tomo so nyori changdo gres ane mo katse kuyomo mo pa no tindi yena no achibu kuyomo yena kol nyinko konke to tobu to soma mombe yores tindi yeso ngasu soma tanda ngema shevan devando ba dinga mando ba chiba yeso susu katse gabu nyibu chenke yona yabu ane namje dikja katse tenke mena yores 남자 듣자때 저라 남자 야부매때
단디 두잡지 차와치
pana susula cha dishalengeto 남자 야부매때게서 매네야 또 매바즈와라 수승군에 사울리치 동거라마토 수승군에 사울마토 파쇼 좀바군군에 차 쫑쫑 두거나 요아요마데스
So if you think about like people that are very prideful or arrogant, of course they tend to not have a lot of friends, right? If you look at, they'll tend to sort of not attract a lot of people. Whereas people that are humble, right? That don't have that, you might see that they have a lot of friends. I actually don't know if that's true in all Western cultures, but. But also the same thing, like people that do good, attract a lot of people, and people that do bad sort of repel a lot of people.
타마데야 수수문에 티즈 바로불 티즈 삼시 제고라마도 이제 좀방군에 차 좀바 두고도 사울이디요나 아니 백업으로서 나요 야부 참아서 pena mi jemba nga chomba la sa shi che
경발라디.
수술을 야부제 경바 살로 또 아마도 파야부 맞제든지 촌에 살로 메나
네네.
네 가버렸어.
그래 가버렸어.
찬대 차도 저부지 간요메 가버렸어.
Yeah, so if you're the kind of person that's always thinking about your own self and you're really always sort of looking out for yourself and trying to benefit yourself and not thinking about other people, then things are going to be hard for you, right? It's going to be hard to have friends, people aren't going to like you, whatever you do is going to be very difficult.
다기 교시하데 지자도 지잖아. 다 나제심부 다 통보요나네. 좁 모본 가요라자죠. 디즈 틴디셰데. 텔스 나사나 살루톤사 니요르스. 지잖아 나가제심부지 레칸조모 틴디에나 날 좁 모본 카르카르잖아. 나 미야타네 마레스. 지잖아 날 온차심부요. 거사요. 네 콜레레와자코소사 칭카. yana penjo chabuyo penjo mombuyo tindichene yo ngala magana ni penjo laga ni kosa laga ngala gabu chenka tindi tindi mombujo ma santengi trobote yes kapure
so like
ngara samsa
so like what Geshe was thinking about what I said is that people like that they're sort of we see as that are prideful or arrogant, that are attracting a lot of people. Of course, they're not really attracted to that person. They're not really they don't like that person. That person doesn't really have a lot of friends per se. They're attracted to the person's power, the person's money, or whatever these qualities, right? That's what's attracting the person. But the person, right? It's not correct to say it's my perception or my view of this is it's not really, they don't really have a lot of friends. They just have a lot of people that are attracted to whatever it is they have that is making them prideful.
내가 sana trouble 야샤티 제penjo가 trouble 말. 상땡 상탄이 보고 trouble 야샤한테.
Yeah, so real friends, like the best friends to have are friends that are really friends like sort of from the bottom of their heart, right? That are not friends because of you have money or whatever, whatever other things you have.
네, 단다에서 전출 절세바 단 무지 레드시야 돼.
Because of the
단다 때는 레마소. 단다 레레 테즈 하소.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and continue in the book talking about karma. Can you such a
네.
65. Oh, okay, so we are starting on the four powers here, which is I think on 73 in our English text.
단다 레달라 아니 가서 레 마치파도 만트바도 레 지바 추마자자죠. 요 레달라 텐데니샤. 레 마치파 만트바 레 지바 추마자와.
So in general, when we talk about karma, there's two really important aspects of karma that we teach. The one is that we do not experience karma that we have not created, and the second one is that karma, once created, does not sort of go to waste. Does not sort of spontaneously go away.
네 레달라요 리 총쇼 제나 남에 디포 게아도 마게와데 식침본도 요 리식 침보지잖아요. 네 디포 데와도 등어 뇨뇨 차 딘드만다 아니어라스.
Okay. So the chungwa the chimpa chakris
리 총쇼지 사라. 리 총쇼지 사나요. 네 게와도 네 드바니가 침본도.
So it's also possible when we talk about the effects of these karmas, right? So you can accrue what seems like a very small karma, a very small action, bad action that can have a very large effect, in the later life, or a very large sort of effect on you. And also you can accrue very small positive deeds that later on can have a very strong impact on you. And in the opposite, very large, what we call very serious karmas, maybe large is not the right word, very serious karmas, or very powerful karmas, can end up having actually quite small effects. It just sort of depends.
Pena michi pena pama seato drajomba seajora. Tindiga tisesona keto chimato seyo mares. Ina pandiba hajuchim pena mi jingaji seato ane suzuku pama seala ane name chichochena 수수 파마세야 남에 시안 참매길리 리시 시아라스 야 미바 소마치바이 마코지 맹아 트리지 세야도 아니 수수 파마도 다종바다 텐데시 세야라 드바치조도 남에 식치존시나 아니 파마세야 식치야
디 밤에 디 가리탕 디 mambotsi하기
페나 레 파마세야가 수 만라식 세라 미시세비 니바마도 요마라 네, 요 미지세라 미지바지세아도 코닐라 드바치조든 참면 드분요아 식치조잖아 파마세아도 식 치아요레스.
So for example, right, when we talk about these sort of 5 acts of immediate retribution, again another not great translation equivalent, but samegile, it's like the 5 acts of without boundaries or something. Anyway, the 5 heinous acts, we can say. Right, so killing your mother and father or killing an Arya, right, these are some of them. So if you do that, right, that's a really terrible thing to do. It's considered one of the worst things, the acts you can do. So we could compare that to someone who, say you kill your mother or your father or an Arya, compare that to someone who kills 4 or 5 people, right? Well, it actually would be worse to do one of these 5 heinous deeds, like killing a mother or father or an Arya. That's actually worse than killing, some other number of people, 4 people in this example.
Pena ngazo mindricila kuzoga shibane chetogo mi phabachila kuzoga shibale pena mi soncha chesake ne pembu ku punda boton ne jobu ko risni pa ane jak selendo sanjen rawchila lapan chawa to shiati niga yakka ko thachena ninga chia chishonde anda sanje to selna to solo laba chati shichi botsigando pena ngazo pena ngandro chigi mi jambachila kuzo mi pharbachora til kuzo ka chishibali ne mo penchomboto jobugo bo ne zambalita jakat sanjeto solan rabajala ne koleti kuzo chishina koninga chatsagdo
vikarithini konsu tingakcha mombo dangi
pena ngandro mi pharbachila kuzo ka chishini zengkono dwal sanjeto solan jobu pundabachil lapa chane kuzo ka shizona nipa chia tongres karazana kozo oncha chia to nipa chia tindi
So it's sort of similar, we can think of, right, like if you kill just sort of a normal person versus killing like the president or some sort of very important person, member of parliament or any of these kind of sort of really powerful people, right? If you kill them, that's very dangerous. But if you kill a normal person, maybe it's not quite as dangerous. So we will be in page 65 of the Tibetan and 73, I believe, of the English, 72, 73 of the English with the 4 powers.
Sambasan in judo charitsa chetambazana karazana ta konlo khoini muto legend mombochi shetsara ti shetsa te karazana tin khala khona kantin khogon khala dona kantin dogon dozana this so le dona and khala khona kantin khogon do khala dona kantin dogon dozana o tikko sache tegres.
So we are in this I or 1.3 engaging and abandoning after contemplation, which has 2 parts. And so really what we're thinking about here is in the book we've sort of reviewed karma a little bit. In the book went through great detail about different sort of aspects of karma and the hell realms and all of that we sort of skipped over a little bit. But the main point here is that now what we're going to be talking about is really how do we cycle in samsara, and then how do we sort of get out of samsara? How do we sort of how do we like reverse the causes of samsara?
ane sache ni ba de chebo de tawji jois ane nyembo tawjin go ne de ba sha sa sache deres.
And so here we can look at this the second part here too, the emphasis on the practice of the 4 remedial powers, or what sometimes is translated as 4 opponent powers. And this is a way of purifying karma that we'll talk about.
네 가나글린디 시바치니 시바차나 만져봐요. 다티 카르라레잖아 네 당가서 리갸사나 칸디레 두바사나 칸디레 네 컨트롤자나 칸디레 소마 당가서 비차나 요아차도 수수가 시아차도 페마레스 아니 용요 가바 용요 살루톤에 텔라 용요 몽부 가나마토 가서 엘라포젤라 키아도 페마레스 시 차치니아 고아차 nga sheso za jana chako phe mara that you go gores.
So this first sentence, we need to know what the positive and negative actions are, and understanding them. However, we should not just leave it in that, but instead should put effort into meditating on them again and again. And so the point here is that it's not enough just to sort of attend this class or read this book or even know all of the information in these books. That doesn't actually do you that much good. What you have to do actually is meditate, is to really think about these things over and over again, to familiarize your mind to this information, and that is what will have benefit. But just knowing this information will not help you.
Any tipo de TYOS,
Any more questions? You guys, anybody? You guys have a question?
Question, TYOS. 당담에 아니 디세시라요 말이야. 아니 드라마나 다티 초마데 단당아죠. 다티 오 초마드 카라자 단당 당아서 셰소자 좀바 좀마임바 용용 사울루톤 야마 케차트리 아니 텐데 몽보 제네 타 논추제나 아주 논추자 수카르제네 논추젠 농게 삼바드 주아데라 삼바드 주네 야리조아레스 티 삼바드 주네 야리조알라 테 티세 예름보 응고르 살루몬보 돈 텐디 제나마토 카트 야톤 쇼쇼치토네 텐디 요마레스.
So this next paragraph, just to summarize sort of briefly what it says here, is this idea that, like we said, you have to sort of familiarize yourself over and over again. And so the Tibetan word nang chu, which is kind of means like inner dharma, but what it really means is sort of transforming one's mind, right? And so you have to transform your mind, and the way that you do this is through this sort of repeating this familiarization. And then so through familiarizing your mind, you're able to improve your mind and transform your mind.
네, 디사제시드가네 님보타제티 셰그도스. 네 님보타제티 저도 학교에서 군요.
Have you? So now I heard the next part was two, emphasis on the practice of the four opponent powers or four remedial powers. Have you guys ever heard of the four opponent powers? You understood the question?
Oh. But it was referring to the familiarizing of what is good and what is bad,
Okay.
in order to recognize it, right?
Sure.
But when you think about how things are good or bad, actually, all what you do, even though it's considered good or bad, can benefit all people. For example, if I do something like bad to you, maybe I yell at you, I give you the opportunity for you to practice patience, and I give you the opportunity for you to realize also lots of things that I did a bad action to you. So in the end, what is the difference between bad action and good action? Because actually, it depends. And most of the times, bad karma or bad actions are actually a really opportunity in order you to realize where are you and how is your mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Kungi tiwa karisena di mijiki di juba nimba china chokchina di yapu yomore dipu yore ini chokchindani di gokap yore chikchina kongi ngala di nuba china ngani chini nga di lojong di nyamnan cheki gokap rakituk di suba di gomgi ki gokap rakituk then di kongi juba nimba kongi ngala di tupa dangna di Kyap na di kariyana di nguni chene kongi lete ngimbare ini nga di gogap rasong tenjen di kandis di juba ngimba di le ngimba tang di le kewa kandis yewa chekeres kangi se le ngimba kariyan sena Tsewang the mission ki nyaman chegi kokap double chakis.
Actually, if you don't have a bad intention but it looks bad on the outside, is it a bad action?
That's a separate question though. Let's
But
change
it's-
this. Yeah, but let's get the one question at a time.
데레스 페나 가서 난다부지 여진루 조바가 냐레 야부제 알라 나레 찜 파로부 컨트롤론가도 막간케지메나 네 조바냐레 제자 요마레스
Yeah, the kungi, the paropeki, the tikpasai sakin tela, the kungi jubate yapo yosare. Kangisha kiranga di nyaman chegi gap. Ra.
레스 나레 제아 코코 콜 조바가 펜토 야부 정거레스 얘나 코르고 데바사그레스 얘나요 다 페나 난다부지 컨트롤론 다만다 제나 그래서 조바 강가 텐디 마초나 네 시키디 치리치린드네 강가 침보트 그래서 페나 나 내가 드자체라 내가 드자체나 내가 조바가 텐디 미야분 체나다 야보레스 그래서 아니 컨트롤 자마레 코니 내가 드자라테네 그래서 조바가 야부 차그레스 얘나요 따티 아주 뇨뇨레스 베나 뇨뇨 베나 nga leka dechaslena ngala nyiji gateni chenge te gyachai chena nyonyo rese tili magang nga leka dechajala teni kozo control zan kozo phasa tili dikpa magyalen ke monyo chena shikchimbo rese
Yini kongbena kirangla di kora di tipo chena. I kirang suba gom ki kokap di gawa chena. Kongi joba tengmene di dikpa reve.
kogi chobati dikpare yena nga gewa saat kar rezen ngaru salu tonchongone yapu chagare mato
So the
kogi te dikpata
kari chene kongi dikpa rete. Kirangla pento jungna kari chene kongi joba te dikpa re.
dikpare zena kogi dikpa roji choba koro pena tanda tijo pichi shene
So, yes, it is still bad. If you say, for example, you hit me, right? That you are still accruing negative karma, right? You are doing something that is considered a bad action. Now, I might take that as an opportunity to practice patience or whatever, and so through my own actions, I can have some positive action from it. But what you're doing is still considered a negative action, negative karma. Okay.
pena dikpa sa to magya sa chora tinna dikpa to magya ra mato te khat gyare zesa chisa yo mares pena dikpa magya chera tin te na dikpa magya ra mato tingola geva yore zene chisa yo mares kar jenzen pena ngema michi ke shimbachi ke zosha ge yore zozene tanga sanche mombo se ge yore sanche mombo se kausa ne ti michi ko pa ko sesatan tores mi mombo se tindi che de yora sanche mombo se yora kola ko senketela sajo te trabatik niji shabachi kire niji shik trabachi akha ta ko lingem ba shaba sagdu zene ko jala tiche sarche tindi kasik che gres yenayo ko cheta taruma gara ko duba likat kar zena socha to ne
Kogi legate. Yeah, kogi legate.
pena chobang ba chera nga choleten zoba gora zoba ga es nga zoba ga ne yabu chara yena choro chobang ba magya tagaro les pena cho jati chikse degyo nga chontone nga chole niji sheba shikene aka tik lenga ba sagandu zene ngijel niji chigres yena choro jati set choro tagaro magyare diba magyare taro matati yare zan yache yo mares
So, for example, we could think about the situation. Say, for example, that there's somebody who's like killing lots of sentient beings, right? That's a very bad action. And then someone else who sees them killing those sentient beings and generates great compassion and really compassion or sorrow for them to see them killing all those sentient beings, right? Well, that person's action is still very bad, even though it is a condition for someone to generate compassion for them, right? It doesn't change the nature of that action. In the same way, I was sort of going back and forth, trying to get the exact details. But in the same way, like if he did something bad to me, or if somebody, let's see, if you did something bad to me and he observed it, right, and then felt bad for you, right, it doesn't change the nature of the action.
Pena ngala kate chembo ngala pento chonga tsawziki pashote leka yabu yomba tsogu yomba res. Pena nga toko tone shito cheyona. Toko tone tanga kalamarani shito chey deyora. Shito chene shi.
Shigiri.
Toko tone shito ta kalamarani tone deyora. Tindi ite ane michi yemba chindrone pashondrone longonda bodo pabanda sera. Tishate ngala stena. Ngala pento chembo res. Ni sonsu tu res. Inayo pagi til duba shabasatsares.
The kind of disimgeness.
Senchaka soche tindichesares. Ya koge na la pento chembo zuyore tina pasolo nechisares. O tindabushires.
Also, for example, say I was really, really hungry, really starving, and then somebody went and killed an animal to feed me, right? The person that killed the animal still accrues the bad karma of the killing, even though I get a great benefit from it, right?
And also, because
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, it's the motivation, right?
The motivation what it changed.
It's important.
If I shout at her, but I don't have the motivation of being I'm not angry. I'm just shouting. Okay.
So like a parent shouting at a child to help them,
Exactly,
yeah.
That's what I wanted to say.
It's a monkey with the gunlong wangi yongi re di jiksina di pame chukula di sheshe dang ge kyap di tikpa saki mare di kangi se de pame te di chuku di rokpa che gi che di kongcholangi re. Di nang shin ki tikpa saki re.
Deba sagares. Kon keto genlo ra. Genlo to samba kene lone. Konyon to gea to magea genlo yapu yombala. Ne li magea za chi sia yo re. Karezen pama bugu yapu yo icheto. Ane sote to tindi momo chera. Yena te lika chate pama ke yapu res. Bugu pento res. Yena pama korongolo kontro za yeso koro kontro ke nimu to deba de yoyo res.
So the shikchungwa chakiri res kuno yapo yona di tikpa te shikchungwa chakiri re.
O te deba shikchichola kenlo la rali res. Deba yoyo res.
So the nature of the action doesn't change, right? Even if a parent gets angry, right, because they love their child and they want to help them and they're like shouting at them, they're still getting angry. That anger is still a dikpa, still a bad action. Now the motivation, of course, will sort of adjusts how strong this negative action, the karma is, right? But it's still a negative action to sort of to generate anger. And so if you're doing it out of love, then of course that karma is less powerful, but it's still, you're not changing the nature of the action.
Okay, maybe I will put an example which probably is completely wrong, but
It's
I
okay.
want clarification.
Sure.
Because, in the Tsewang also we're studying this, and so they told us the story of the king that has a wife that really loves her, and his wife died, and then for telling this to the king, they lied to him, saying oh, your wife is becoming ugly, and then at some point they say, your wife died, and the king is happy that the wife is dead, right?
Yeah,
so they kind of lied to him, and they call that skillful means, but actually it's lying.
Okay.
And this is also a thing that I think Buddha also used that in the sense of they lie because we are not ready for that.
Yeah, the interpretable and definitive meanings.
Exactly. Yeah. So that in this situation, then.
Well, how do you separate this? So, kongi sungkakare sana di jiksina zincha shimbagi nangwak di chung, di lokut jungsong di gyabo jikiyore, kongi gyabo kongi tsuma, kongi pume, di 총벌에 얘네디 공기 코르와 디 공기 연기 밑에 있어디 콩라 주마셰게레 디 공기 kirangi gemen it became ugly or something. What is
that had like some
She has some disease. She grew something on her
Yes.
forehead.
kongi gemen the be the jaksong the nasong the kari kongi dongi nanga the kari na gebare kongi zemo mare the kamala kari sini kongsu the kongi korwa tetsu kong the gebola zuma shegi shindu the gebu gisem shiwa chakire hako songe konsu ki gunlong konsu zuma sheagi the kare gyune
Zeswa jena kol dewata veram
pentogire dinjin do the top double semotangire este konsu the tapiapo yore yangna temase sange samsam dinje chakpare kanginsena sungpare kanginsena tongten tangeton samsam sange mishinla di gyachagaki demba sungyomare kanginsena kongso di tatung diki mare di tap samotangires tetsoki kangi samotangire kebakari
re tanda nga so sonje ke son tonton to ngite zen sha shindo tito zenzatni pet lokares zuma za pena tanda koza no je koge leka zombo che yorete yena kolon dibo zensha ke namete yores zendi katena koro zenrema to ko yarin roa yo mares zemate na yo zemarama to yarin roa yo mare yena ko kenlo le yapo yores pena nga ta ko pijano je pe mombo yore pena nga ma trabachi monena trabak zenshe nye mare traba lama traba ranyo zemasya yo mare zem sonje ga son yora ane michi tunoma shawa ni jundur traba de langwana dode sha de jundur res ne sha senge ngomba chilara ne traba de la thores traba de la shawa thonso res traba de ta ko zemasya na sonje ga cheba tan ga do ane zema masya na ne shawati ka social dos tende de solo to ne tako shawati ka socially kon zenshe jana su niba yorete na pasha to social to gundu ne kon zema sheren tomaso romaso la tila tene ko kenlo yabu pagi shate social yorete korola zenshe ka niba za nani jora titaro progress niba to yogres
konsu di lesa
li chiba sare de na li shik chi chondo kenlo ya so chi yora ma to zemak lete taro sagres
so yeah, I mean, even in that example, the act of lying is still, the nature of that is still a bad dikpa, a misdeed, right? You can't change the nature of that action, even though their motivation was good. There's this story you may have heard about a monk who's walking in the woods and sees like a deer go by, and then a little while later he sees a hunter, or she, it could be really either way. They see a hunter, and the hunter says, "Have you seen the deer? I've been tracking this deer." And so the monastics take vows. I mean, they have very serious vows not to tell lies. So, the monastic has this problem where he or she is like, "Oh well, I've seen this deer. If I tell the hunter where the deer was, I don't lie, but then the deer dies. Or if I do lie, right, and I protect the deer, then I accrue negative karma." And so, the monastic in this story doesn't lies, but they still accrue that karma of lying. Although the power of that karma, because the motivation is good, is much smaller.
ne tanda tichi yore yonjo ngasundawa no pana boji yore susuka amati shibu nane pan zine zen nasa dikcha shibu nane pa dinga shibu nyon dev yore amati putika susu amati nasa dikcha shibu na pa dinga mozo batindi chade ina putika ta amati nyeji kene lo ne ta amati tindi dejana pa dinga shibu nyon dus tile amati sejana shisona 세잖아 딜리야서 등어 뇽사마레
Sina.
아마트 세잖아
네.
등어 뇽사마레 전 그 아마트 세자
음.
아마트 세자 그래
텐상가 텐제 마모 제게레 민다나 콘소디 그르디 닝제기네 디 세기레.
딘디 세자데 콩 겐로텔라 니요 상로토 다치다 니지케넬론 아마르 샤자 니지제 겐로치요 아니 치도 소사 그 세고타라 세고타이서 소사티 타루 마게아레스 이나 니지테 타코르 겐고 차데요 이나요 코 아마테 세아 타루 아마소비 니바자나만도 등어도 뇽고 테레스 지바치죠 나메치
이 담은
나메자나 페나 마치 세라 페나 마세네 소스 아마드 세네 코 겐로 게아 야부 요레데 예나 코 티냐도 소사치레 소삼비 삼바 코 세고 사비 삼바 지오라 티 세고 사비 삼바티 코르타로 마게아레
미고레. 저 킨덤 칸지스 라이 칸지기레.
티 레드카레제나 미직 세비기 니바 소마 요레스 페나 타바치나 니지케넬로니 미치세나 타바 담바 톤두그레 Jimba Namechiba Nyogres.
Okay, so we can use the example of, say that there's a mother who is very sick and incredible amounts of pain, like really suffering, and the child sees this and just cannot bear the suffering of the mother. And so the child actually, kills the mother to put her, to help her, to put her out of her misery. And I mentioned that this actually is sort of a thing in Western countries now, that this happens semi-regularly, that we do this. And so what Geshe explained is that you have two things. You have this motivation, which is compassion and love, and is trying to help stop suffering, but it still does not change the nature of the action, which is to kill a being, right? So that doesn't change. And so, for example, right, if a monk does it or a monastic does it, they have vows not to do this, they have broken their vow, right? They are no longer a monastic. They have broken that vow. So you can't change. The point I think he's making is you can't change the nature of the action through motivation, although it does affect the strength of the karma. Oh, he has a question for you.
Tanga niji kenelo nga Indo sejana Jacob Chatungagretungar Maris. Zambale, so the Jacob Chatungagretungar Maris.
So say I get really sick, and out of compassion he kills me, helps me die, might be nicer. Is that against the law or not? That's a question for you.
Against the law?
Yes.
It depends on how he helps you.
Probably the country, actually. In the U.S., it's by state. Some states it's still illegal, and in some states it's illegal.
Yeah, that's true. That's why. If he helps you and like going with you to a clinic, and
he just drops me off in the woods, and then you can get tapla deni the chim tangyo ki tapla deni ere. Kirangala di karate. Not so the mimba tangyam tu dinji che tupla the chim tangyo mare. Kirangala di rigangla di lakna jiksena ti tangyo rigangala minda sena jiksena di chim tangyo ere tongisen kotere. Nga di nga so the arla di chetso yore. Ini nga de rela dene di samsam chim tangyo yore nga de kashe di chim tangyo yomare.
Re tanda nga so soche za jora. Nga so melon chea che soche kenlo yapu yona ko pe sosa za so pi samba kor magya yeso za kor lika cheli kor pe set magya yeso za kul name yoyo ares ta tindi name yo ato dawano pe mo bo yo name za na pena samba kenlo yapu cha chi kenlo yapu yo bengone pasho lika magya che yora Misa to Zensha Tindi. Tiritela Namet Pana Choro Zeshana, Zeg Namet Nyogre, Misena, Mise Biniba Namet Nyogre, Chokemo Kasa Yabuyona. But Name Ranata Nama, Samatamakan, Name, name gewa name magia za jo
Okay.
ote
Um,
yo yo ares magia ti kon dawando pe mo
Yeah.
bu yo
So, regardless of how good your motivation is, like for example, when you kill, you still have this mind of killing that is the sort of the cause, the place of accruing the karma, right? So the motivation does not change the fact that you have this, you are accruing this, you're performing this action, you have this mind that is killing another person, right? So you have that place of sort of accretion of the karma, regardless of what your motivation is.
But if you kill somebody, you're helping this other being to clear the killing, like his own karma of killing, because you're killing him because he also has this karma of
Yeah.
killing the past.
Kongi suma di nguma nangshin di kirang ngala sena. Nuni chene nga di kirangi ngala se bele nguma sakpain. Din jindu kirangi nuni chene kirangi ngala sena. Ngala pintokire kangi sirang nge di nguma nga ngume sakbele sergire. Nebasogire. Din jindu nuni chene kirangi nga sena ngala pintokire. Kangi sirang ngume ki sakbele nebasogire.
And if there is no bad intention, then what is the bad? Because if you don't have bad intention, you
Dikolong
don't kill.
me dikolong tukchak me na di
Sorry, there is stories of bodhisattvas who kill.
yeah, that's bodhisattvas have
Of course.
different powers.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I'm not
Chichanchu
saying-
simba kashe yang di misegire.
jonji samba ge o jonji samba ge message jendo kene lone message ora ina ko name chiba nyogres duba ko sosa ge le pena yo sheto chichana nga choro sera te karrezena kianga ma choro nga puleyo sa chonga seso sa chires ina tatti pas se sa se tindi chera ti duba ti mashana nga chose chose jima chonga se sa ti duba ta dag mare la nga ni tacheg mare tila nonchun karrezena tila ngoshache shabache duba ta shagora ma duba masha tombo chonga se jima nga cho pasen pa ta yo mare se yo pasen sa tel ngi ba sha duba shagores.
So, for example, if he kills me, right, well, then he's got the karma, and the next life I might kill him. And so we might spend all our lives just sort of killing each other back and forth, right, unless we actually purify this karma, right? So this idea that you're sort of helping me by killing me because I'm purifying that karma, but then, it's really just a cycle. And so the only way to break that cycle is to actually purify the karma. In the example of the bodhisattvas, right? The bodhisattvas, it's the same in that situation. They still have they still have that karma. They still have that karma that they've accrued if they kill someone, even regardless of their motivation. So I think that's out of time.
Ani tiayo na jima kali tisho.
Yeah, come back, please. You can.
Tanga tis kaji cholo chiduk. Chize sos.
Yeah. He has to go somewhere. Yeah. The karma is really detailed and tricky. You can run yourself in circles trying to figure it out. Nge kumula di le hak sebo hakona di nokta sabutuk konok putuk. Nang na di shibja cheni samotangna kirangi korik semgi nang korak yap gire di tamsam. Hakoya bekapo di legium degi shibja cheni hakoya kapotuk.
Ta choro jima peke yapu jota ne legend nga pe yapu siya.
Yeah. When you.
That example, like Andrew is very sick, and then out of compassion he killed you, right? But then that against what Geshe said in the beginning of class, that in the beginning of the teaching, Geshe said, when we are suffering.
Sorry, let me just address this. I'm sorry, Taruna, I didn't see your question. I need to do a better job of seeing the chat. I assume you guys are going to speak up. So anyway, I can ask it so if you want. I think it got answered. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to address that. So tell me your question again now.
Okay, Geshe make an example, like for example, you are very, very sick, and then out of compassion he killed you. But that against the beginning of Geshe's teaching, Geshe said, when we are suffering in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also, purify our karma.
Karma, sure.
Yes. So, like,
We have lots of karma that we remember.
yeah, so when you are suffering, like, very sick,
Yeah.
then also you are purifying
your karma. Yeah.
And then if he kill you,
Uh-huh.
then he stop you
Purification.
purify
Yeah,
your
I mean,
karma.
that's why then you don't know where I'm going too, right? Yeah. Kongi, so what should I translate to Geshe? This idea that,
Like he said that out of maybe he thinks it's his compassion to you,
yeah.
but then it's not, because if you are studying.
Oh, so it's not actually compassionate.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not compassion.
Kongi sumga di kyanging ala di sena, di gunlong gyapo di ninjegi kyune sena, di nguni chini di ngala pinto ki mare kangi saranga di la natsati di parche di nguma sakpele di segire. Di injiri kyanging ala sena ngi di sakpele di nyongi gogap chola jogires. Di injiri nguni chini kyanging ala sena di ninje gine ninje yabu yomare. Pinto yomare. Kongi di singare.
ina tangazo niji kuloza to ramandar niji chito masheba niji kuloza na niji mugo sala niji
Ninji gomo
bana niji ki yo mayemba la niji ba to ne niji chito masheba ta niji koloji mombuji yor
di tapke botang tap
niji yo yeme ani cha tin rumandu bana jonshi saba jol jonshi ka sayo atsa 네 디바 마사도 아니 덴디 케바요 마레스 이나 코조 절 존식 사회에서 레마게 사나요 디바 샤키 샤 케보요서 코조야 망엔로 케 마라마도 존식 사바이 존식 사절 요나요 아니 디바 마게 사도 somom부 요레스 이나요 코조 디바 사나 카투 샤샤도 샤타 샤비 니바 쳔보요서 응에서 케고 마라마도 존식 사바도 난트다 덴디도 mom부 요 초레스
So there's many different sort of types and levels of compassion also to remember, right? And so like a bodhisattva, of course, their compassion is so powerful, right? Even though they might have all this negative karma in the past, it can't propel them, it can't sort of create the conditions for a negative rebirth because of the power of their karma. So there's different types of compassion and skillful compassion, not skillful compassion and all of that. And they have different, effects. Okay, Geshe has to go, I think.
지마는 아주 졸레몬스.
Yeah, we can talk more later.
Yeah. 저도 추도.
Thank you, everybody online.
Thank you. Bye bye.